What I was thinking is if we have questions from nephrology, we can have them go. And then if Will, the planner who's on board, he has questions that he thinks the public might want to talk about, he can ask you guys, and we can have that on the recording that we can publish online if in case people want to go back to it later. And then I'd love to hear your introduction about your family that you were talking about with me earlier. Just so we can have that on the recording too, because I think that's really important as well. So I'd love to start with that if you'd like, and then we can go into those kind of question and answers, and then we can wrap things up.
Sounds great. I'm going to defer that to my husband, Gary.
Sounds good.
So I'll begin with that description of us. So tonight at the meeting, my family is Bohlender Funeral Chapel. My family has owned Bohlender Funeral Chapel since 1960. We would be the fourth owner of the funeral home. My dad started in 1960, totally bought out the funeral home in 1980 from Harold Warren. And then we've taken over the responsibility of the funeral home and the ownership since he's passed away. So right now on the screen with us is my wife, Kristen, who works with us full time, and my daughter, Scout, who then would be third generation at the funeral home. We feel that moving from Old Town to this location would help us serve our families better. And that's the main motivation for us to find a new location.
Fabulous. Awesome. Nephrology, did you want to chat a little bit about if you have questions or things that you wanted to bring up in this meeting? We can just keep it kind of open and flexible.
Thank you so much. I don't really have any questions right now. I did see the proposal. We will also be new tenants right across the street. So I was just kind of curious into seeing what the plans would look like. And I really don't have any questions right now. I do appreciate you asking. If, as we present, if I have questions, I absolutely will raise my hand, okay?
Okay, that sounds great. So then I wasn't quite sure if we should do our presentation from our planner's perspective, but it sounds like that would be something that you're interested in. So then I can go ahead and share those slides and we can go through our plans if that would help you kind of visualize what the project's going to look like.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it. Michelle, did you want to present as well, or do you want us to present?
I'm happy to present, Em.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and present, and then we can wrap it up, and then if Toby has any questions, we can do that.
Great. Maybe.
Looks good.
Oh, okay, hold on. Okay.
There it is.
Can you see that okay?
I can.
Okay, great. So what we want to talk about, this is basically the project is at 3350 Eastbrook. It sits on the corner of Eastbrook Drive and Danfield Court. It is a 2-story brick building. Currently, there's no major changes to parking or anything like that. There is a total of 44 spaces. And then we've also accounted for a few of the on-street parking, which is a total of the 11. Right now we're looking at providing a little bit of a canopy just for pedestrian canopy that would flow and kind of support a proposed patio area. This covered area would provide some shelter in the event that a hearse is used. Those are pretty limited functions, but they still wanted to provide some kind of protection and access for that hearse. On the back side of the building, there's a pair of doors that are about 8 feet in width. The plan is just to remove those doors and then provide a overhead door. This would provide any basically a simple little drive into the building to keep privacy, things like that, for deliveries, those kinds of things. There's no new work done to the existing garage that will be used for storage and additional parking needs for the funeral home. And then the main entry will maintain facing Eastbrook. Go to the, any questions so far? One thing to just add, currently the first floor will be really primarily the funeral functions. It will include a small 200 capacity chapel, and then also any of the other program spaces needed for additional visitation and reception functions. Second story will remain as multi-tenant spaces. Currently there's about 4 suites, and those will remain as those get leased out and also partially used by the Bohlenders. Going to the quick elevations. Right now, this is how the building sits. There is a little bit of facade or kind of some facade updates. We want to bring back these berms that are here on either side. And then also this is the integration to the canopies. And then the little heightened canopy here just to provide some additional patio space as well as coverage. On the south elevation, we wanted to just note what any visual impacts with the inclusion of the crematory. Right now, this is what you would anticipate to see for those stacks. It's really quite minimal. They will set fairly close to the parapet, but we don't think that there are going to be any kind of visual obstruction to their everyday needs. And the glazing also will be blacked out to not show any of the equipment. Anything to add, Kristen or Gary?
I think so. I think we're good.
Okay. Great. And nephrology, do you have any questions?
Could you go back one screen for me? Perfect. Thank you so much.
I'll blow it up
So
just-
off of, oh, thank you. Yeah, and the reason I'm not on screen is you probably see my face is literally 2 inches from my laptop because I'm trying to see and y'all don't want to see that. So, so the proposed drive from Danfield, would that be new?
The small, yes, that would be new. What the intent is that we would keep it really quite narrow. And it will mostly be probably blocked off, so it's not used. It's not an everyday function. It's really just for those special services. And Gary and Kristen can kind of speak to how often those occur. They're really not more of a common need, but I can let Gary and Kristen speak to that as well. Give additional questions.
No, I don't think I do right now. And then you said there's a 200-seat chapel that's going to be added as well?
That's correct.
Okay, and it's just the first floor of this particular building?
That's correct. All of second floor will remain as it's currently separated out with multi-tenants for office.
Okay. Perfect. So of course, the thing that we always want to know about is parking. I do see the street parking there. So if you do have a service for 200 seats, could you talk to me a little bit about the parking for that type of an event?
Sure. So we're kind of continuing to work with staff on what that would look like. There's a couple of arrangements and possibilities. One of it is we could look at doing basically kind of like a shared parking for adjacent property owners. We've been talking a little bit with the property owner that is directly to the east of us. And then also other tenant or other spaces that we could be talking with. I think the Madwire building is still kind of working out who its final tenant will be. But those are proposed options in the event that we need any overflow space.
Have you spoken to the building owners of the building that we will be leasing out of?
I am going to turn that to Kristen or to Gary. I'm not sure if they've started that inquiry just yet.
We have not started that inquiry. It's one of those things that we'll address probably, shortly after this, and then we have another zoning meeting that we would talk about that also.
Let's share that slide, Gary, that might help get a handle on how few
Sure.
services we actually host anymore at the funeral home.
So Michelle, if you could pull up our decedent cases for 2022. So at this time through September 27, we had handled basically 350 families that we served that were decedents. You see that 314 of those were not funeral services at the chapel. Funeral services at Bohlender, there were 36. And then 5 services were actually held with a hearse. Some of those services, of those 36 that were at Bohlender's, were on weekends, like Saturdays, also evenings. So the impact would probably be fairly minimal.
And then you can see the number, we've estimated the number of attendees at those 36. 25 of those services had less than 50 guests in attendance, and 11 had less than 75.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Is that typically because of the space you're currently occupying, or are you anticipating with a 200-seat chapel going in, are you anticipating having larger gatherings in the future?
To accommodate our families. So right now our capacity at our funeral chapel now is 160. It's a little tight. I don't really anticipate there being that many services that would be more than 200, because usually if we get even close to that, we're going to start to suggest, a different venue like Timberline Church is kind of like our go-to, because Timberline's always been very accepting of non-members and them just being open to larger services.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. I sure appreciate that. Just a little bit about our services. So we are again 3351, so essentially across the street from your building there. And we will be having patients coming in, which is a first, I think, for that office suite. I think in the past they've had employees as tenants, but we would actually be having customers coming in. So folks driving in and out of the parking lot for our office. So certainly just wanting to make sure that our patients can continue to get in and out. If you folks are going to be having a funeral procession, just as long as Eastbrook wouldn't be blocked so that our folks could get in and out of our parking lot. That would really be my only concern regarding that.
So our processions are pretty much minimal. Right now, we usually will meet families at the cemetery, or we tell people to, if they want to follow behind the funeral coach, they certainly can do so. But we need to obey the traffic laws, or they can, like I said, they meet us at the cemetery. So our processions traditionally don't really happen like they used to. It's maybe a few cars, and it might be just the family that follows the funeral coach to the cemetery.
Okay, perfect. And really, that was really my only questions for our patients to be able to continue to come in and out of the building. That we haven't even moved in. They're still demoing our building. So we aren't even going to be moving in until probably spring of next year. So we're not even in the space yet, but I just saw the community sign. So I just wanted to listen in. And that was really all the questions I had, from us at nephrology.
Appreciate that.
No, thank you so much for giving me the information. I do appreciate that.
All right, well, I consider that a success. Toby, I'm gonna supply you with a few links just so you can keep up with this project, and keep on the lookout as it continues through the development review process, and as well as my contact information, so that if any other questions pop up, you can reach out to me and I can facilitate contact between our city staff. And it seems like you have contact with Garrett and Kristen, so I'm sure you can ask questions of them, or you can reach out to me as well if you want me to reach them. So I'll pop those things in the chat. And we have a few more slides from the kind of city's perspective on like planning and zoning, if you're interested in seeing those things. If not, then we can wrap up. But I want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered.
Do you mind if I look at the planning and zoning slides as well, if you have the deck prepared?
Let's throw them up. We're getting the real VIP treatment here. All right, do you see them?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, so this is just our typical neighborhood meeting slides. I don't think we need ground rules. Will, do you want to talk a little bit about these slides that you made up for this project?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think we're all pretty aware of where the project site is located, so I won't dwell on this one too much, but just to show that it is part of this larger office park and employment zone district here. So some things to be aware of, that just like other development activity that's happening in the area, we do have another active development proposal just down the street from Eastbrook Drive, on that parcel, just maybe 2 parcels kind of to the north and across the street from here. You know, the question was sent to me or asked of me the other day why this project is having to go through development review. A big part of that is because it is considered a change of character to go from, you know, the established office use that's been in the building to a funeral home use. And so that's a big part of what's driving the need for this neighborhood meeting and this development review process for the Bohlenders. So if you want to go ahead and skip down to the next slide, just kind of this one, I always just drop in like a Google view because I don't have a drone. So this is about the best that I can do for people, but it provides some sense of kind of the built environment and the context here of what's around immediately around here. And go ahead and jump to the next slide. I'll talk a bit about that process or continue talking about it. So like I said, a funeral home is a permitted use in this zone district that's subject to a planning and zoning commission review and approval. It's also considered a secondary use in the zone district, and secondary uses are limited to 25% of the development area of a project. So like I said, this change of use requires a major amendment, and major amendments are generally for projects that, even in this instance, when they're not expanding the building beyond what was originally approved, like I said, we consider it a change of character from what was originally approved for the site. So we're looking at things other than, you know, kind of the operational side of it related to traffic and stuff like that. We're also looking for, you know, some minimal site improvements, such as, you know, updating landscaping. This is since it's a change of use is actually exempt from the minimum parking requirements. But as you've heard tonight, the Bohlenders are, it definitely sounds like they're committed to providing that additional parking for those instances where there'll be a need, but they should be able to meet their regular day-to-day parking demand with what's already on the site. And go ahead and jump to the next slide. So just as far as where we are with process, this project did come in for a conceptual review meeting, which is our required pre-submittal meeting for projects like this. And that happened on September 8th, and staff at that time provided the Bohlenders with a list of comments and questions and things that they would need to be aware of leading up to their official project submittal. Like I said, it's a code requirement to have a neighborhood meeting for a project like this, which is why we're all here tonight. And then after this evening, it's a code requirement that they wait at least 10 days after the 17th to officially submit their project to the city for us to review. And then once they submit that to the city, that kicks off our official review period of the project. And so as they, once they submit and it starts to go through review, those materials will be publicly posted as well. And you'll be able to track along at those websites that M's going to share with you and kind of keep tabs on the progress of the project. But I would anticipate with a project like this, since it's not, you know, from the ground up development, this ideally won't take too many rounds of review, and it'll be, you know, on to the Planning Commission in a fairly timely manner here. But related to that, I was wondering if the Bohlenders could share just their overall timeline from today to when they expect to occupy the building. I think that might be something that would be good to have on the record and to share with everybody.
I think Anna, can you speak on our behalf in terms of the timing of things?
Sure, I was not prepared to speak tonight, but happy to.
I'll make it up for you.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. There's some unique circumstances with the purchase of this building that's causing the closing to be delayed slightly. But the transaction related to the Bohlender's current property downtown is proceeding. And really, the timing of that is a bit out of our hands. So I think we're probably looking at, gosh, I would say at least 6 months to a year before you would be in a position to occupy the Eastbrook building. And again, a lot of variables dealing with both transactions that would influence the timing of that. But I would say probably 6 to 12 months minimum, maybe a little bit longer before you would actually make the full move over. Do you agree with that, Gary and Kristen?
Yes, that's probably where I was at. Yes.
Yeah, I think we're probably towards the later year mark, 9 to 12 months before everything, you know, we need and want to do is making the building occupiable for us.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing that information. I just figured, especially with your neighbor across the street being here, they would, you know, want to know when they could expect to see you guys actually occupying that building. So that's always good to know. Toby, did you have any questions for me on the planning side, just as far as, you know, the zoning, kind of the overall intent of the area, what our requirements are, our review process? Any questions there?
No, Will, I didn't have any questions. I was actually on the other meeting with the apartment complex that you're working on also to the north. So as that area just continues to develop, I just kind of like to keep informed. I do not have any questions at this time. And thank you very much for showing me that deck. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
We also have a new member who just joined named Kyle, and I'm not sure if it's a member of the public or a member of the party, but I wanted to reach out to Kyle and see if they had any questions as well, or if they wanted to go back over any part of the presentation that they might have missed.
No, that's fine. I can just listen into what's happening. Thank you.
Sounds good. Kyle, if anything comes up, feel free to raise your hand or go ahead and put something in the chat. We only have you and one other member of the public here, so unless there's any questions that you come up with, we'll be probably wrapping up fairly shortly here.
Thank you.
All right. As this project kind of progresses through the development review process, it takes the time that it takes, and obviously there are many different factors that impact it, but there are some things that you can expect to happen up next and you can look out for. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a document with you all that has all of these links that I mentioned on this slide. available for you so you can copy and paste them, because they're not, it's tough to copy and paste off of a slide. So you can have those accessible even after the meeting ends. So as I mentioned earlier, this meeting does get recorded. So if you want to go back and listen to any of the things that the presenter said, or read the slides again, you can go back, and I'll try to have these posted within 7 days of this meeting up on YouTube. So that link will be shared with you. Depending on what kind of neighborhood involvement we get, sometimes we schedule other neighborhood meetings. So we'll keep you up to date on if that happens. But the next time that will be open for public involvement will likely be at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. And so if you saw the sign for this event, or you got a letter for this event, you will always, you'll also see a sign or a letter for the hearing when that's scheduled. And there's also a link in the document that I'll share for the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. So you can always check and see when that gets scheduled as well. So you don't miss it. And there at Planning and Zoning Commission, there's a time to make public comment. So if you did want to make a comment to decision makers and let them know your opinions or thoughts about this project, that's the space to do that. There is a website that I'll send you that has updates on this project, so you can see it go through the review process and keep track of it. And it also has links to a public records archive, so you can find really technical documents like the submittal documents and things like that that we require if you're interested. For example, on looking at what comes out of the parking requirements that we're looking at. You'll be able to see what comes from that submittal when it is turned in from that website. So you'll find that link in there. And then I will also include my contact information, and it's also on the next slide. It's also posted all over our website. So I'm very easily available, and I highly encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions all along this project or any other project. I am the liaison, so I am your person in the city when it comes to development review. So questions, comments, concerns, they should all be directed towards me. And I am happy to facilitate getting them to the right person and finding out the information that you need and getting them back to you in a timely manner. I also want to point out that I have created a survey because I'm trying to kind of take a look at the neighborhood meeting process and see what I can improve, and also take a look at who's coming to neighborhood meetings and who's being served by neighborhood meetings and who's maybe not. So I have a link to a survey if you're interested in taking that in this document that I'll share as well. So that's my wrap up. I'll throw up my contact information on this next slide for you all. And you can go ahead and read it. And if anything else pops up for you, I'll be here as people kind of leave the meeting, and you can feel free to speak up or throw anything in the chat as you'd like.
Perfect. Thank you, Em. This is Toby again. I don't have any other questions or comments at this time.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us, and I'm glad that we were able to get all of your questions answered.
Well, thank you guys very much for taking time to have the meeting and showing me that. And I wish the Bohlenders the very best in the purchase of their new space.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Toby.
much
We appreciate
appreciated.
it.
Yep. Thank you guys very much.
Did you get Scout to mute?
Right. Well, me to mute.
Oh, is it you?
Margot came in and visited, and then she left, and then the door was open. So.
We appreciate you guys. Thanks for giving us an opportunity and supporting us through this.
Ditto.
Yeah, of course.
Are there any other questions in the chat, Em?
No, nothing through the chat right now. I'm trying to share this
Your
document.
presentation.
So bear with me.
Mhm.
All right, looks good. All right, looks like all of our members of the public have logged off, so I wish you a pleasant evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Good. Thanks, Em.
Thanks, guys. Have a safe evening. Go Broncos. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care.